It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. Go get 'em, George.
Trump's in China, just when we were recovering from the trauma of seeing Keir Starmer in Shanghai. We've got to watch Donald Trump in the deep red carpet in red China. And the British government is in meltdown, as is the German government in meltdown. And Macron was whacked by his wife because he'd been flirting with an Iranian actress. You couldn't make any of this up. It's all on the Mother of All Talkshows. Stay tuned. I mean, if there's anyone with a fair mind on that aeroplane, Air Force One, with Donald Trump, they must already be conscious of the vast and growing chasm difference between their own country and the People's Republic of China, right down to the choreography of the welcome. Xi Jinping didn't show up to meet this traveling troubadour, this elixir salesman from the Wild West. He sent that for lesser mortals. But Donald Trump has touched down in a place with the most popular government in the entire world, while his government is as unpopular as the European Social and Christian Democrat governments, about whom more later. Record poll ratings for Xi Jinping, record dreadful poll ratings for Donald J. Trump. Donald J. Trump tells the cameras and the whole of America that he doesn't give any thought to Americans' economic interests, whilst 1.4 billion people in China are, frankly, the only interest of Xi Jinping and the Chinese government. Sure, you can interest them in international affairs if you really force them to, but only in the context of China's national interest. He's landed in a place with record public infrastructure spending at a moment when the United States is spending basically nothing on public infrastructure in their country. He's come from the land of the mass shooting, the mass school shooting, shopping mall shooting, cinema shooting, to a country where the police don't even have guns. But some of you didn't know that. Chinese police are unarmed police. Which one is the dictatorship? You've got ICE wandering around the United States, shooting citizens in the face, while the Chinese government's police doesn't even bear arms. And bearing arms is not that common in China, but it's pretty common in the United States. How could it be otherwise? The United States has been at war for all but 6 of every one of the 250 years of its existence. It is an extraordinary juxtaposition. The Chinese spend very little comparatively on weapons and war. The United States seems to spend on nothing else but weapons and war. And we're asking tonight, are they about to return to war in Iran? My guess is no. My guess is that the Chinese will advise them out of it, and that if they want China's help to get out of this dreadful economic bind that everyone, including the United States, is now in, they better not be setting fire to any more parts of the world. Mind you, who needs the United States to make war on Iran when the United Arab Emirates is revealed to have made war against Iran? And Kuwait just seized an Iranian ship and is holding Iranian citizens. What could possibly go wrong? Mighty Kuwait, what could possibly go wrong? And Netanyahu flew secretly from Tel Aviv, according to Netanyahu's own office, to the United Arab Emirates and had a secret meeting with the president of the UAE. Well, I don't know, the public in the UAE will not like that, but the public don't matter in the UAE or in any of the Arab dictatorships in the Persian Gulf, or in any Arab country at all, for that matter. Least of all in Lebanon, where the elected government is actually openly in league with the United States and Israel against at least a half, probably more, of their own people, the people represented by Amal and Hezbollah in the Lebanese parliament. But I am drifting off my main point, which is the effortless, bottomless, ever-widening success of China compared to the grinding malaise which is now present in all Western countries, even the ones that used to be thought as success stories. This grinding malaise is bringing everyone low. People who've got a skill set that can travel are already on the move from Western countries, including, I'm sorry to say, my own. Our birth rate has plummeted to virtually zero in the case of Italy, effectively zero. And in every Western country, this malaise is manifesting itself in all kinds of ways: drug addiction, crime, social disorder and dislocation, hatred and bitterness between different sections of the population, all comparing and contrasting with the almost perfect harmony to be found in China. We spend a lot of time in China. We can see and feel what's going on the public level, on the state and political level, and on the communal level, on the level of the people in the streets. It's quite common, by the way, for ordinary traffic policemen to speak fluent English in China. Imagine that in Birmingham, where the Workers' Party of Britain has just defeated the leader of the Birmingham City Council in an absolutely historic victory, in what was an absolutely historic disaster day for the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. I've been told by my editor to avoid certain subjects in relation to Keir Starmer, and so I have to. But I certainly am not going to avoid the fact that the British government is in an advanced state of disintegration. I understand that the Health Secretary, Wesley Streeting, a close friend of the disgraced Peter Mandelson, Keir Starmer's proximate reason for his latest crisis, is about to resign from the government and declare a leadership challenge. He needs 81 members of Parliament to have it. And I can exclusively reveal, because I have friends in his camp, that he has well over 81 members of Parliament. So unless he loses his bottle, which is possible, then there's a leadership challenge underway by the weekend against Keir Starmer, which Keir Starmer cannot possibly win, because everybody realizes that he's a block of wood. Everybody realizes that he's leading them to the unemployment exchange at the next general election. The historic losses suffered in the elections last Thursday, not even a week ago, are still reverberating at Westminster, and the whole place is agog with nothing else but party political manoeuvring. This as the British government's main duty of looking after the security, safety, and economic well-being of its own population has disappeared, almost literally disappeared, off the policy agenda. These Labour MPs are acting for only one reason. They didn't resign over the theft of the old age pensioners' cold weather payments. They didn't resign over the genocide of 1 million Palestinian refugees in Gaza. They didn't resign over British weapons and British largesse being heaped upon the thief of Kiev, on whom the corruption net has now tightened to the extent that his own deputy, his own number 2, appeared in court today in connection with a £10 million theft of your money given to the regime in Kiev by your government and composed of your taxes. Nobody resigned over any of these things. Nobody resigned over the demise of the steel industry in Britain. Nobody resigned over the absolute transformation of Britain into a finance capital operation where the casino economy rules supreme and the manufacturing and extractive economy is run down to virtually zero. We are a country with an ocean of oil and gas who are putting concrete caps on the wells because, net zero and all of that. We live in a country where the Green Party managed to put up, well, how shall I put it, so as not to be offensive, just about the motliest crew of hooks and crooks and fannies and comic singers ever fielded in a British election. And they won hundreds of seats. That's how bad it is for Keir Starmer. Nigel Farage may very well be about to be kicked out of Parliament over a secret, undeclared gift of £5 million from a plutocrat who lives in Thailand under an assumed name. None of that is made up. The leader of the government in waiting in Britain, its leader, Nigel Farage, personally received a £5 million gift. We only know it was a gift because he was caught out having not declared it when the rules make clear that he should have. He had to say something, so he said it was a gift that he used for security. What's he got as security for £5 million? Is it the Brigade of Guards? The Royal Fusiliers? Did he hire a quarter of the British Army for his personal security? If you believe that he used £5 million for personal security. I have a bridge in London I could sell you going very cheap. The Standards and Privileges Committee of the House of Commons has just taken this matter under their purview. And the end result, I'm prepared to hazard a guess, will be the expulsion of Nigel Farage from the British Parliament and the declaration that he can no longer seek public office in the country. Well, Starmer's got to do something. What else are you going to do? He's being torn asunder by the Green Brigade and Reform and us, the Workers' Party of Britain, who had 8 councillors now in public office. The only socialist party in the entire country, with even one public representative. We have 8, with a couple at least of by-elections in the next few weeks, 1 or 2 of which we will almost certainly win. So Starmer is leading Labour to oblivion. And so what's he going to do? He's certainly not going to do the right thing. He's certainly not going to do the decent thing. He's not going to do the thing that was once commonplace in British public life, of stepping down, retiring to a country house and writing his memoirs. Apart from anything else, who would buy the memoirs of Sir Keir Starmer? He could retire to a penthouse flat in Soho, the gay district of the City of London, but I'm veering into difficult waters and I can almost hear the steam coming out of my editor's ears. Keir Starmer will face a challenge on Thursday, and so by Sunday we will be in the midst of the great intra-party struggle. And there's no ending that can be easily foreseen. Because once Wesley Streeting throws Peter Mandelson's hat into the ring in Manday's revenge, then others will have to follow. The prince over the water, not so bonny Andy Burnham, is obviously not in Parliament, and he isn't going to get into Parliament in time for this leadership race. So his surrogate is likely to be either Mad Ed Miliband, the Green Zero guru, who has committed Britain to an expenditure over the next 15 years equivalent to Britain's entire GDP to be spent on windmills. My God, how many windmills can you buy for that? It's a bit like Farage. What did he do with £5 million of personal security that none of us have ever seen? Mad Ed, the bacon sandwich eater, is, mad and widely regarded as such. So I'm kind of hoping Labour choose him, although if they choose Wesley, they choose Mad Ed, none of that will be bad news for the Workers' Party of Britain. Or they could choose Miss Woodbine, Angela Rayner, the, how shall I put it, less than delicate lady. Lady? That's no lady, that's Angela Rayner. She may very well enter the race as a surrogate for Andy Burnham. Andy had the idea, crazy idea, of getting a Labour MP to stand down and create a by-election immediately so that he could enter Parliament. But I had news for him. You can only enter Parliament if you actually win the by-election thus created. And I'm here to tell you that we will do everything that we possibly can to make sure that Labour does not win any election anywhere, whomsoever is the candidate. Because for us, it's our historic mission to destroy the British Labour Party. And we don't just fight elections to win them. We fight elections to make sure that Labour will lose them. There's so much going on all over the place. It's difficult to know where to fasten for my closing remarks in this monologue. but it would, I think, have to be. And it's a message of optimism. When we left Moscow, the sun was shining, the flowers were out, and spring was in the air. And there's a rising tide of optimism in Moscow that the end of the war on Ukraine, caused by the NATO attempt to balkanize, weaken, and existentially challenge the existence of the Russian Federation, is petering out to a close. The talking points that I have been telling you for the last 4 years, and which were denounced as Kremlin propaganda, even the anti-terrorist police were dragooned to detain me at an airport to ask why I kept saying these nasty things about Volodymyr Zelensky, are now in every publication in the Western world, are now reflected in every news bulletin in the Western world. Saint Volodymyr has become the thief of Kiev. The things I told you over and over again about his tyranny, his crackdown on anything remotely describable as democracy, his crackdown on the church, his crackdown on anybody who wasn't a part of his thieving clique, they're now all being bagged by the anti-corruption police. Who's behind it? Donald Trump is behind it. The American government has moved their assets, whom they carefully placed in the agency charged with auditing and getting to the root of a kind of corruption that is almost impossible to describe. I'm talking about millions of pounds for low-level officials, meaning hundreds of millions of pounds for the top dogs in Kiev, the top corgis in the NAFO movement. We're on hundreds of millions of pounds, dollars, euros of criminal largesse. And now the chickens are all coming home to roost. There's only one man left, not under investigation. There's only one man left, not in court yet. That man is the thief of Kiev himself, Zelensky. When the war ends. He leaves. He hopes for an untroubled future in Miami, Florida, where so much malfeasance appears to have already taken place. It's all coming up on the Mother of All Talkshows. Stay tuned. I think you don't have to worry about these things with Mamdani, because my overwhelming feeling is that Mamdani is a phony. He has as much intention of doing these things as, I compare him to a figure in British Labour history who became briefly famous in the US when Joe Biden was found to have plagiarized him during a presidential run some decades ago. But that man's name was Neil Kinnock. He used to talk all this flowery, far-left guff like Mamdani does, but he had no intention whatsoever of actually doing anything about it, of doing any of it. So there's no chance whatsoever that Mamdani is going to defund the New York Police Department.
You are listening to the Mother of All Talk Shows with George Galloway.
You thought this was Adidas. This is a knockoff. This is a theft from Adidas. This is a fake Adidas. bought in the great city of Shanghai and worn in honor of the visiting President of the United States, and a laugh at Adidas. Here's the poll. Is Trump about to go back to war? Yes or no? You can vote on my Telegram channel, t.me/George Galloway, on my X, on the YouTube community poll, on the YouTube stream, and on patreon.com/George Galloway. 20,000 people have voted so far. Most of you think that Trump is about to go back to war. I presume the question is it going back to war with Iran? Well, a man who should know is a man I spent time with in Iran just last year. He is just America's finest journalist and the head of America's finest news outlet, The Grey Zone. It is Max Blumenthal. Max, welcome back to the Mother of All Talkshows. Let's start with China, where your great leader and teacher is currently enjoying lavish hospitality, certainly a better response than he gets at home by all accounts. Is this the big powwow that's going to sort out all of the world's problems, or is it the big kowtow where Donald Trump pays tribute to the emperor?
Well, it's closer to the latter than the former, and this will not be a particularly historic summit as the U.S. enters with very minimal preparation. Scott Bessent only started acting to prepare for the summit in the past few days. There were not the usual Sherpas in China, as in previous administrations, who were there weeks before to start initiating deals that the president would wrap up. And the real problem for Donald Trump here, as he goes to China, is that he has substantially weakened the United States in Iran leading up to this summit, as he's escorted by 12 U.S. so-called business leaders who are mostly tech oligarchs who are there to actually beg the chairman of the Communist Party of China for business deals. Donald Trump would probably like personally to find an off-ramp from this war that's devastating his own political position, even with his own base, and wrecking the U.S. economy, even as it stirs up record insider trading profits for himself and his cronies. Can China deliver on that? Will China deliver on that as it watches the U.S. position be so badly weakened? Well, the ball's in China's court. Donald Trump has brought the U.S. to Beijing in a weaker position than any U.S. administration of my lifetime, and it's because of what Robert Kagan, the author of the 90s era document calling for U.S. benevolent hegemony, the co-founder of the Project for a New American Century, just declared in the pages of the Atlantic magazine, a pro-Israel publication, to be the worst U.S. military defeat, the most damaging U.S. military defeat in history in Iran.
Wow.
The U.S. will not be able to demand anything of China, as it complains that China is helping to provide, for example, Beidou GPS targeting systems for Iran's missiles, as well as satellites that allow Iran to see sophisticated U.S. systems and radars at U.S. bases in the region. It will not be able to do that. So what we are going to see is a display of U.S. weakness, as well as the lifting of I think like the final lifting of the mask on the fraud that Donald Trump sold his base on America First, as he hands over new sections of the U.S. economy to Chinese investors.
Yes, I was going to raise that very point. There's speculation that China is going to start building factories in the United States, when it was an article of MAGA faith that China should not be allowed to own any land in the United States. And the rollback of agricultural land that China had already bought was one of the articles of faith. On one of the pavilions in the Forbidden City, there's the slogan of one of the emperors, forgive me, I forget which one, whose slogan was "Do Nothing." And when you think of it, that's actually what all Xi Jinping has to do now. Do nothing. Let the Americans beg. Let the Iranians knock hell out of America's military political position in the Persian Gulf, and just sit there smiling wryly, which he's quite good at, actually.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, there have been discussions of $1 trillion Chinese investment in the United States, which would presumably require China purchasing a lot of land in the U.S. Maybe on some level for the American consumer, it would be good to have, for example, access to BYD Chinese electric vehicles. We saw a lot of those when we were in Iran. They were certainly benefiting the Iranian consumer. They're cheaper and very durable and better than in many ways than Teslas produced by Elon Musk. But at the same time, what is Donald Trump doing to his own base here? Marjorie Taylor Greene has slammed him for this proposed $1 trillion deal as another betrayal of America First. And Laura Ingraham, who's more loyally in Donald Trump's camp, the Fox News host, still more loyal to Trump than Marjorie Taylor Greene, has called this one of the biggest mistakes of Donald Trump's presidency. Well, it's not really a mistake. This is actually baked into the cake. Donald Trump is purely transactional, and America First was basically a scam that he ran on an American public that had been sold out for over a decade through deals like NAFTA and CAFTA, got the opioid crisis to wipe out all the workers who were outsourced, and got the Iraq war to which fell disproportionately on poor districts in cities and on the Rust Belt, which elected Donald Trump. He scammed them all, and now they can see it.
You say it's not a mistake, but he is actually making a lot of mistakes these days, some of which are probably commonplace to you in the United States, but in the rest of the world, I think no one can really understand why he keeps talking about a ballroom, why every conversation gravitates towards a ballroom. I don't think any of us have ever heard a powerful political leader talk so much about something so ephemeral, something so essentially trivial. He's insulting women journalists in particular in the most vulgar way every single day. You can't really keep up with them, and not least because he's falling asleep in public in front of the cameras virtually every day. It's really hard for the rest of us to see this man still being president at the end of this term. Is it seen that way in the United States?
Increasingly, although the Republican base is still remaining cultishly loyal to Donald Trump, at least a wing of it, though its enthusiasm is weakened, and you can see in the special elections leading up to the midterms how much more motivated Democrats are. I think I don't look at American politics that way, as enthusiasm from Democrats or lack of enthusiasm from Republican voters. It's the people who don't vote, who've been turned off to politics and disgusted, who are actually voting with their feet and voicing their disgust with the duopoly. And Donald Trump was supposed to represent this rogue figure who was rebelling against the duopoly and delivering a different kind of politics. Remember in his first primary debate in 2016, or it might have been 2015, when he said all these other candidates are funded by billionaires and corporations, but I'm a billionaire and I've funded them, so I'm an independent man. I was like, I thought that was incredible. That was something that the American public actually wanted to see. Now they can see he's controlled by Israel First billionaires. He's controlled by the AI warlords who are building data centers that we now learn 50,000 residents of Lake Tahoe will lose their power supply in order to supply a data center. Donald Trump is a representative of the forces that are destroying American life for the majority and wiping out possibly $1 trillion in economic output through the disastrous Iran war he's initiated. Meanwhile, he has built a golden calf, a golden idol of himself pumping his fist at his Doral golf course at a ceremony organized by evangelical and ultra-Orthodox religious figures who are basically his religious marionettes. They built an actual golden calf. In the center of the National Mall, Donald Trump has repaved the base of the reflecting pool to make it look like a pool at Epstein's Zorro Ranch or a pool at Mar-a-Lago. This is costing $40 million, $50 million. And when Donald Trump and Doug Burgum, his commerce secretary, drove over the pool in what was supposed to be a triumphant moment, they actually damaged the pavement, requiring more cost overruns. And now you also talk about the White House ballroom. If you look over the east end of the White House, you can see the ruins of trees that were mowed down dating back to the Calvin Coolidge administration. Basically old growth trees, rose gardens. It's a great metaphor for what the Trump administration has done to whatever was left of the American Republic. And that too is another cost overrun. Donald Trump said, oh, the ballroom's just going to cost it's not going to cost American taxpayers anything because, my corporate buddies who pay for my campaigns will take care of it. It turns out the taxpayer's now on the hook for over $1 billion as it keeps expanding after this very strange incident at the White House press correspondence dinner where there was a shooter who shot no one and didn't even get shot. They said they need, anti-drone technology. They need to establish a security base under the ballroom. It needs to be built. And where's all the money going to go to? It's all going to go to contractors that have been paying Donald Trump. So more corruption, just like the corruption that has granted Pentagon contracts for 2 separate drone companies that are now owned by Donald Trump's sons, one of which is actually an Israeli company that's producing technology for the Iran war. So we're talking about corruption that makes Hunter Biden look like Ralph Nader. It's corruption that makes Hunter Biden's art look like a Girl Scout baked cookie sale. It's the most corrupt administration we've ever seen, and most Americans are seeing it, but the reaction for many is to just react with disgust and turn away from politics, which is why the generic ballot for congressional midterms doesn't even show the Democrats up by that much.
And don't forget the phone, the Donald Trump gold phone, which raised and which has disappeared $59 million. Hundreds of thousands of people paid a deposit for a phone which has never been produced and is not now going to be produced. If you and I did that, we'd be in jail. He's in the White House.
Yeah. I remember seeing Eric Trump on Steve Bannon's show advertising that phone. You're going to it's a secure line. You're going to be able to speak unencrypted to anyone on a golden Donald Trump phone. And, in some ways you deserve what you get if you fell for that scam. But there's not going to be any punishment there. And the Department of Justice is also investigating $2.8 billion of insider trades made since February 28th when Trump launched his illegal war of aggression on Iran on behalf of Israel. You think the DOJ is actually going to turn up convictions and indict the Trump administration? Right now, the DOJ is Donald Trump's personal law firm.
Yeah, I wanted to move on to Iran. The vast majority of the people in our poll, 25,000 people have voted already. They think that the Iran war is back on again, and that as soon as he gets back from China, presumably, the war is on. I've got my doubts about that. I think that the Iranians have won that war, and I think the American military brass know it, and people in the White House with more sense than Donald Trump know it. What's your take on it?
Yes, yes, I agree with that assessment. Donald Trump knows it. Donald Trump doesn't want to be in the war, but he's unable to walk away from it. He doesn't want to be called Taco Trump. He wants to save face. He has no moral victory to show for himself to be able to walk away, so it's humiliating, and he can't accept the humiliation, but he can't go back in because he will be politically pulverized. The Republican leadership doesn't like the war. The vice president doesn't like the war. I don't think Marco Rubio's that enthusiastic about the war, which is why he's stayed away from negotiations and stayed ringside with Trump at UFC fights. The Chinese government does not like the war and will be encouraging Donald Trump to end it and using enormous amounts of economic leverage to try to end this war and open up the Strait of Hormuz. However, who does like the war? It's the foreign apartheid state that has Donald Trump by the short and curlies. We're talking about Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu just delivered an interview to 60 Minutes in which he was allowed to actually choose his interviewer by self-described Zionist fanatic and CBS editor-in-chief Barry Weiss, who was installed by the Ellison family, who are close friends with Benjamin Netanyahu and bought CBS through Paramount for that specific purpose of making it a propaganda megaphone for Netanyahu. Netanyahu chose former Fox News host Major Garrett as his interviewer, got a softball interview, and in the course of that interview, he called for the United States to actually put boots on the ground in Iran. After all the bloodshed and disaster we witnessed and the economic chaos, Netanyahu wants the U.S. to bring special forces into Iran to steal Iran's so-called nuclear dust, its enriched uranium stockpile, which would be a disastrous operation that would lead to absolutely dead Americans, possibly American hostages. Netanyahu will not allow this war to end. His military even put forward a proposal to Donald Trump to destroy all of Iran's essential infrastructure and energy within 24 hours. Israel claimed it could be able to do that. Can you imagine what would happen if Donald Trump listened to Israel and allowed them to do that? I mean, what would happen?
Well,
it would be the end. I think it would be the end of the UAE.
It would be the end for November, right? I mean, presumably he cares the outcome in November because his own liberty, never mind office, might count on it. I mean, if he wants a Democrat majority in both houses and the ability to impeach and remove him from office, well, he'll go ahead and listen to Netanyahu and do that.
Yeah, that would be one consequence. The Democrats, the Republicans are gerrymandering the hell out of the country right now. And the Supreme Court basically just obliterated the Voting Rights Act so they can take away black representation below the Mason-Dixon line in the South. But they're still, even after all of this finagling, they're still looking at losing 10 to 15, maybe even 20 seats. If Donald Trump goes back into Iran because his boss, Netanyahu, orders him to in another strategy room meeting, the damage will be worse. But we also have to consider the damage regionally. Israel is struggling mightily against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, and it has elections coming up. If elections were held today in Israel, Likud would lose, and Benjamin Netanyahu would no longer be prime minister. And what's happening in Lebanon is a factor. So too were Iranian ballistic missiles just hammering Israeli cities, with Israel running out of its interceptor stockpiles. Israel would also, by going back into Iran, trigger, I think, the possible toppling of governments in Bahrain. I don't know what would happen in Kuwait. They would get hammered because they've been hosting U.S. attacks on Iran. But also the UAE. There's a very interesting op-ed that appeared this week in the Saudi paper, Al-Sharq Al-Awsat, published by Prince Turki Al Faisal, who's the former intelligence minister. And he was trying to explain the real role that Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince, has played throughout this war. We've been told that MBS was actually lobbying for the war, that he was a major force. But according to Prince Turki, MBS was a stabilizing force who tried to keep the Gulf states from entering the fight and tried to protect their own population from the U.S.-Israeli aggression, and that he succeeded, suggesting that the UAE was taking another position. And one thing that was tucked into that article was the concession by Prince Turki that if Saudi Arabia had gotten more involved, Iran would have destroyed their desalination plants and their oil infrastructure and destroyed the entire country. So he's basically saying Iran had the power to destroy those countries. Now the UAE, which is Israel's partner in the Epstein Accords, or I should say the Abraham Accords, has been barking threats against Iran and claiming that they can hammer Iran. No, the UAE would face the same consequence as Saudi Arabia if the war begins again, the destruction of their desalination plants and their energy infrastructure at a time when temperatures are, I don't know Celsius, I apologize to your audience, but peaking above 100 degrees Fahrenheit in the region, which means everybody depends on air conditioning or they have to completely leave the region. And I know people who've left the UAE and it's like they signed some kind of NDA agreement or something. Like no one is allowed to talk to me who is in the UAE or who left because they might want to come back because they're so afraid of that repressive dictatorial government. But let me just say the situation there right now, based on what I've heard, is worse than we even understand.
Netanyahu very helpfully, or his office very helpfully this afternoon, let it be known that Netanyahu had made a secret visit to the UAE in the middle of the Iran war. And that'll do wonders for MBZ's standing in the region, particularly in Saudi Arabia. I have said all along, and I say again, and I entirely agree with what you've just said, that Saudi Arabia is the one Gulf country that tried to avoid all this and is the least penetrated by the Netanyahu gang. But the UAE is the vanguard. It's right out there, out front. They actually mounted attacks against Iran. Never mind hosting American attacks. They mounted their own, and they are now in possession of anti-aircraft machinery and weaponry that has been given to them by Israel. So we are seeing the tectonic plates, even inside the Gulf, shifting, aren't we?
Well, the shift will be towards, this will be one of the outcomes of the U.S. failure in this war, is the shift will have to be towards the Gulf countries diversifying their international relations and starting to balance their relationship with the U.S. with better relations with China, better military cooperation with Russia, and better relations with Iran. And this is thanks to the prowess, asymmetrical prowess that Iran has demonstrated here. Saudi Arabia is already suggesting that it's poised to do that, whereas the UAE has made what might be a fatal mistake, which is that it is leaned entirely on its Epstein Accords or Abraham Accords alliance. It's put all of its cookies in the Trump family cookie jar. It is responsible for a majority of donations to Jared Kushner's investment firm. They have this ambassador in Washington, Youssef Otaiba. I've run into him on 2 occasions. And his job is to be like the biggest American bro, hang out with Fox News hosts. He invites them all over to his house to watch movies. I've seen him show up in like gym shorts at lawn parties in Georgetown. And he is the point man for the UAE. They don't have another strategy, along with basically buying every American influencer they can. They're totally invested in normalization with Israel. It's a similar mistake the Saudis actually made back in the second Bush term, when their ambassador at the time, Prince Bandar, was totally invested in the U.S. and the neocons. And look at the situation they've gotten themselves in, where they're on the verge, as Prince Turki acknowledged in his op-ed, of destruction if there's another round of warfare with Iran. That's not a position any country can afford in this coming multipolar world.
Lastly, Max, the master, I keep you too long, I fear, but if there's one saving grace in the entire Trump administration foreign policy, it seems to me that they would like to end this war in Ukraine. And I said in my monologue that when I left Moscow, I could sense that with the spring had come a new confidence that this war, which has cost the lives of well over 1 million people, has cost hundreds of billions, if not $1 trillion or more, in treasure, and has created such tensions in the world that people go to bed at night in some places, some households, worrying about World War III, that the Trump administration would like to bring it to an end. Am I being over-optimistic on that?
I mean, what is the Trump administration? Because if we include the CIA or the so-called deep state, they don't appear very interested in ending this war. And Donald Trump and his negotiators have just been so lazy diplomatically that they haven't taken any serious measures to de-escalate. The U.S. intelligence is escalating. They're behind these bombings of Russian pipelines, which have also increased the price of oil and also driven inflation and also contributed to the inability of the Fed in the U.S., for example, to cut rates, interest rates. This is another factor, along with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and the pain of the global economy. You think the Ukrainians are able to do those strikes on their own inside Russian territory? No. And what are they achieving militarily? They're not actually altering Russia's calculus or stopping the advance of Russian forces. It's simply something that can be pointed to, and you see New York Times articles hyping it up to continue this war. I would also point everyone who's watching this now to a remarkable interview by Tucker Carlson of Vladimir Zelensky's former press secretary, Yulia Mendel. In that interview, she completely exposes Vladimir Zelensky as a fraud and a charlatan who has been propped up as a puppet of the British and U.S. war state. And she notes that he actually had vacationed in Crimea after it was annexed by Russia, which had been a secret until now, just to illustrate what a fraud he is. But she also goes back to the time of the supposed Bucha massacre, which, and she doesn't go deep into Bucha, but she raises some interesting questions about it and then confirms that at that time, most Ukrainians were expecting a peace deal, some kind of negotiation around Istanbul in April 2022, and that the war would come to an end so that tens and tens of thousands of Ukrainian men wouldn't be sent to the meat grinder. And instead, Boris Johnson, who is close to Zelensky, British Prime Minister, flies in, promises Zelensky everything, including to be a global hero, backed by Hollywood. And Zelensky basically agrees to shatter the Istanbul negotiations and continue the war for as long as possible. And that now Zelensky, who is entirely a creation of the U.S., backed by British intelligence, is continuing the war against the wishes of his own people. Let's look at the polls of Ukrainians. This war is unpopular inside Ukraine. They want an agreement with Russia to stop the killing. And every day, new footage comes out. Shocking footage. I can't even watch it. It's too painful to watch, of Ukrainian men being hauled into white vans while their families and children try to save them from being sent to the front. So this war is not popular among anyone. The U.S. public is not interested in it. The only people who want it are the war industry and the Trump family, as I mentioned before. They're contracting with drone companies who are going to make profits from this war. So I think this administration has totally betrayed its promise to end this war. And that's why we're seeing even Zelensky's former staffers, his former top propagandist, come out and call for peace. on the program of
interview-
what was once Donald Trump's top media ally.
That interview has put Miss Mandel together with Tucker Carlson, together with Max Blumenthal, and together with me on the Ukrainian kill list. So much for freedom in Ukraine. Thanks very much, Max Blumenthal. As always, a master class in world politics. Let me take a quick break, and then it's your calls right up to the hour. Stay tuned. A big thanks to the people who support me on the Patreon page. I really have come to depend on the income from that. It costs £1 a week, not even the price of a cup of coffee in an insalubrious cafe. If you think you could stretch to that, please support me on Patreon, patreon.com/George Galloway. Now, the MOATS team have added a tiered system on my Patreon page where you can become an official MOATS graduate. How about that? I speak as someone who graduated from nowhere, from the factory floor in Michelin. But you can become a MOATS graduate and legend. You can give a regular donation to support the show and my work. You can now upgrade from a mere Patreon to a MOATS graduate at £10 a month, as opposed to £5 a month, I think it is. And you can receive official MOATS legend status for £20.
You are listening to the Mother of All Talkshows with George Galloway.
Let's go to California. Who wouldn't, where Shaf wants to talk about Trump. Shaf, welcome.
Hi, George. How are you doing?
By the grace of God, good. Thank you.
That's good. I just wanted to quickly say everything that about the war and all that was simply because Donald Trump, he was being advised by people who were feeding him propaganda, which is the biggest problem here in the United States. Is freedom of speech laws have allowed lies to be spread, and under the guise of freedom of speech, which is not what the Founding Fathers intended when they made the freedom of speech, because in the time of the Founding Fathers, freedom of speech was based upon the honor of men, and, you know, with the degradation of society today, you know, there is no honor among men, really. I mean, there's some, but...
There's no honor amongst thieves. There's no honor amongst politicians. There's definitely no honor amongst the American political class. That's for sure. You call them the Founding Fathers. I call them slave owners and brigands. But that's because we're two countries divided by a common language. Do you think Trump's going to last the whole innings, Shaf? He doesn't look a well man to me.
You know, he's under a lot of duress, and because of that, you know, his health may be fading. Plus, he's kind of old. However, you know, he's still got 2 years left, and I still have faith in him. I think he could turn this around if he starts making better informed decisions, because it's not his job to know everything. It's his job to hire the right people to give him the right information. And I think he's working on ironing out all those wrinkles. As far as the political situation.
Yeah,
go ahead. I was saying, as far as the political, you know, all these political politicians who are, you know, influenced by the people who give them money, that is also a poison amongst our society here in the United States. But here in California, we're pushing through all of that. And, you know, I think pretty soon here, things are going to start turning around. I'm actually running for a lieutenant governor here in California to, you know, show the people in California what I could do. And from there, I plan on running for president one day. But I don't want to be the next president, because I'm not trying to inherit this mess. That's crazy.
No,
the mess that they got going right now is too much.
That would have been my advice to you. Give it a 4 years before you throw your hat in the ring. Well, we've just had a declaration from a caller in California that not only is he running for lieutenant governor, he's going to run for president one day. Mark that name down, Schaff in California. Now, you can leave comments on the YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. Make sure that you've subscribed to my channel. Just scan the QR code on the corner of the screen right now. Like, first name, last name, 6038. Love the chav look on George. Really suits you. Thank you very much. Chav. Does everyone know what a chav is? Cause Payne says, George has got that jacket fully zipped up, so I'm sure he's wearing his suit under. This is just some sort of stunt by George. No, if I unzipped, I'd be showing you my scars. Janine Ayer, 160401 sends 11 euros. Thank you very much, ma'am. Looking sharp today, George. Please, the audience of MOATS, donate for this great podcast. Thank you so much. If everybody gave 11 euros, we'd be secure. If everyone who watches this gave 11 euros, we would be secure. Diamond 999 says, has George joined the Happy Mondays or Oasis? No, I was never a big fan of either. And Dan Hosking says, George, you said you would never wear Adidas again after their support for Israel. Dan, I've just explained I'm not wearing Adidas. This was made by a thief in Shanghai. It's a knockoff, mate. Thomas in Florida wants to talk about Starmer and Iran. Let's hear from him. Go ahead, Thomas.
Hey, George. I just want to say I appreciate you and Max Blumenthal. You both you're worth your weight in gold. And
thank you so much.
About this war in oh, he's great. About this war in Iraq, I mean, this war that Field Marshal Trump got us into, it's going to go down as probably the worst foreign policy decision in history. You know, I mean, even worse than Napoleon's invasion of Russia. I mean, in one stroke, he turned the entire world against the United States. I mean, everybody already hated Israel because of their continuing atrocities, you know, in Gaza and in southern Lebanon. But because of this Halloween pumpkin of a president, there's no daylight anymore whatsoever between Israel, the Israeli regime, and the regime in Washington, D.C. You know, yeah.
Well,
I mean,
beautifully put. Yeah, very beautifully put, Thomas. And as you're from Florida, let me ask you about this golden calf or golden pig statue that he has erected on his golf course that Max was talking about earlier. I mean, I've been going on about this for some days. The fact that it was presided over by clerics, Christian and Jewish, when the very first commandment is that thou shalt not worship false gods. And this being the experience of Moses, the prophet Moses, peace be upon him, who when he came down from Mount Sinai with those commandments, found his people worshipping a golden calf. I mean, you couldn't make this kind of stuff up. However, even in staunchly Republican Florida, the statue has been trashed in the very first week. Dirty diapers, toilet paper, used condoms, every piece of trash that people could assemble has been dumped at the feet of this golden statue. Are your neighbors talking about the statue, Thomas?
All I know is this: is that, like, I mean, there has been a tidal wave type change from what I've seen as far as towards Trump. I mean, down here, you know, it's. I mean, it's justifiable, of course, you know, but I've never seen anything like it. But you take that, and then it's not just that. There's also the other things too, like him putting his face on pictures of Christ, and saying that depicting himself on the cross, tweeting that stuff out. So it's like you take that and this like pagan sick behavior. It's just unreal. I did have one question for you about this the rent boy thing, because being an American, I'm not quite understanding it. But I paid attention to your broadcast.
Yeah. Let me do it after the end of the trial, Thomas. I'm under heavy manners from my editor, Mr. Ron Mackay. Letters or a postcard to him, not me. If you'll forgive me, I'll wait till the end of the trial before I have more to say, much more to say on that. Thanks, Thomas. Now, a huge thank you if you've donated to MOATS this week. There are certainly some new names on the Roll of Honour, including Alexander Visram, Michael Culhane, Gerard Magari, Derek Marshall, and Nassim Kadri. A big thanks to all of you, and a big wish from me and Gayatri to you that you join these mega donors in the course of the evening. It could not be simpler to do. You go to the website moats.tv and you'll be immediately confronted with multiple donate now buttons. You press them and you give a minimum of $1, €1, £1. I'm worth it, yeah? Surely. Josh is also in California and he wants to talk about the economics of war. Josh, most welcome. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, George. People constantly question Trump's, military strategy, his intelligence, and even his sanity. And when we look at what he's done recently, which is essentially take the magic carpet of the modern industrial economy and pull it out from beneath everyone's feet, delivering their budgets such a pinch that they are still in shock, wondering how badly that actually hurt. And Trump is a child of the Cold War, like myself, but obviously Trump is much older. He's almost as old as the Cold War. But what he's done is put the United States, which when he comes into office and finds himself surrounded by war hawks and cronies that never seem to want to leave, and he's given them so many things on their wish list, and it's blown up in their faces. And now he's really in a position to make concessions to the Chinese and to the Russians to be conciliatory in what has been 100 years almost of senseless war. And in doing so, he's put himself in the position to leverage and address the issue of nuclear armed states, not only in the Middle East, and I say states plural, but also elsewhere, which the United States, if you understand how unstable the United States is, the United States really needs to address that issue.
Well, it may be that Trump is a secret agent of the Comintern. He's certainly done more damage to the U.S. empire than anyone else has ever done. He certainly has taken American capitalism right to the brink of enormous geopolitical and geostrategic defeat. But not to worry, Josh. Tell your Californian friends that the Communist Party of China may very well be prepared to lend a helping hand to Donald J. Trump's failing administration. Simon is in London on one of the potential prime ministers. We've got them now coming out of our ears. This one is Angela Rayner. Go ahead, Simon.
Hope you're well, George. Yeah, listen, I'm a massive chess player. I don't know whether I've told you this before. And if a system is deemed to be rigged or flawed, I always try to vote tactically or play tactically, particularly if I see a weak point in the system that I can manipulate and make fail. And this is why I'm surprised. I surprised my friends this morning when I told them that I genuinely wished that Angela Rayner would become the next Prime Minister. I mean, just think about it, George. It's like Gollum taking the ring off Frodo in Lord of the Rings and falling into the volcano herself, They'll collapse the entire system. For starters, for me, it'll be great for gold, but perhaps the shock would shock the price of gold to £7,000 per ounce, with Bitcoin also going up as well. But realistically, George, think about it. Because, historically, the royal family have been known to hold nothing but sheer contempt. Commoners, what they perceive to be commoners, people know from the Diana story, and I myself am hoping Charles gets such a shock. Ginger Growler standing in front of him that he says, "Oh dear, now someone's just taking the piss here," And the general election, form of what Luton.
Well, let's all get behind Angela Rayner. Oh no, that came out wrong. I better not go there. Let me take a quick break. And I'll be back. Later in the hour, we've got the one and only Gerald Celente. I have no idea what language he's going to be using as he surveys this particular scene, but he is a man that doesn't hold back. That's why we love him here on the Mother of All Talkshows. I'll be right back. Stay tuned. I'm so old. I'm celebrating the 51st anniversary of the great victory of the Vietnamese people, and I celebrated it in real time. I'm so old that I danced around my living room as I saw the American empire hastily retreat, if that's the word, clattering off the rooftop of their embassy in Saigon. I'm so old that I remember the tanks smashing in the gates of the US Embassy and of the South Vietnamese presidency. I'm so old I remember Big Min surrendering to the People's Army, the NVA and the National Liberation Front. I'm so old I have a Viet Cong flag from that exact time, one that was waved from the balcony of the United States Embassy. Does Donald Trump not watch the History Channel? I suspect that he doesn't. In fact, we know he watches the Gorilla Channel, and we know that he talks to the gorillas, gets on his haunches in front of the screen and talks to the gorillas. This we know from people whose job it was to be present in the room in the White House. So maybe when someone is so detached, unhinged from real life with real consequences, maybe we can expect a resumption of the war.
You are listening to the Mother of All Talk Shows with George Galloway.
Let's go to New York City. Whoa, who wouldn't? It's George on the Middle East. George, welcome.
Hi, George. Thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to call, of course, Trump is over in China right now, and who knows what sort of good, if any, could come from the visit, but hopefully something will. I wanted to bring a little bit of levity into the topic of the Middle East. The two leaders that are in the forefront are, of course, Netanyahu and Donald Trump. And both of these guys remind me of James Bond villains. In the case of Netanyahu, he reminds me of Ernst Stavro Blofeld, who was a villain who was willing to take the world to the edge of the abyss in order to achieve his scheme, his grand scheme. And in the case of Netanyahu, of course, a lot of people say that he's got as his agenda the Greater Israel Project, taking land, that doesn't belong to him from other countries. In the case of Trump, he reminds me of Goldfinger, because when all is said and done, yep, and when all is said and done, the bottom line with him is money. That's it, pure and simple. And I wanted just to say that the one thing that I like that I've heard you say before in the past is that in the case of these two guys and other people that are causing a lot of suffering in the world, in the end, you may not pay for it in this life, but in the end, everybody's going to stand before our Maker, and we're going to be called to account for our actions. And hopefully, I'm not wishing any harm on anybody, but I think that in the end, you're right. We'll all be called to account for our actions, and hopefully, we'll make the right choices.
Amen to that. I've just got this picture in my mind now of Trump dripping in gold paint at the pearly gates, protesting loudly at the decision made by the Almighty, and then him plummeting, his gold melting as he descends into the inferno. George, thanks very much for that. Now, have you caught up with the MOATS podcast yet? It's a really great thing. It's the essence, the distilled version of the show, shorn of unnecessary bells and whistles. And it's doing fantastically well. This week, we're in the top five for politics in Botswana, Uruguay, and Zimbabwe, and in the top 20 for politics in Jamaica, South Africa, Egypt, Indonesia, and Pakistan. We really are beginning to bestride the world. You can download the MOATS podcast by scanning the QR code on your screen now. Let's go to Canada, bit colder, but still nice, where Mahmoud wants to talk about the economic disaster that would accompany any return to war in the Persian Gulf. Mahmoud, welcome.
Thank you, George, and big shout out to you and to your wonderful team.
Thank you, sir.
George, when Bill Clinton ran against George Bush, the father, his campaign slogan was, "It's the economy, stupid." So if we look today at global affairs through an economic lens, if you like, America has serious economic challenges, not Trump challenges, American challenges. I think a serious look should be taken at the American monetary policy, the practice of printing money, U.S. dollars, backed only by the full faith of the U.S. government and the might of its military. The ballooning American debt, we've seen it, George, in real estate, we've seen it in the stock market. That bubble eventually is going to burst. At the same time, backing our American friends into a corner, forcing America into an existential war will not be smart, because they possess the ability to basically destroy the planet with whom we share. So I think we just need calmer heads.
That's true, Mahmoud, but, capitalism won't exist either if the world is destroyed. And talking of goldfingers, there's an awful lot of goldfingers in the United States that would be forced to spend the rest of their lives in a nuclear shelter, and their children's lives also, because the half-life of an atomic war is centuries, if not 1,000 years. So I don't believe that the rulers, the people who ultimately benefit most from the prevailing economic system in the West, really want to go all that far and risk a complete oblivion for the entire human race. Who's going to buy their cars? Who's going to make their cars? Who's going to buy the cars that were already made and that are now ash? So I still have hope that we can avert the ultimate catastrophe. But the real danger at this moment in time is the same danger that existed in the road to Sarajevo in the run-up to the First World War in 1914. It becomes a kind of inevitability and ineluctability. It becomes, as happened in the Cold War, something that could occur quite by accident, quite by someone misreading the intentions or actions of others, in which case the world would end, as it were, by default, with no one actually really wanting that to happen. Mahmoud, I note that in the great state of Alberta that there's a plebiscite coming up on whether to leave Canada. That's a matter. I've got good friends who live in Alberta, and I myself have done a lot of speaking there in Calgary and elsewhere. So I will deal with that subject in subsequent shows. Some YouTube comments now. Pebs MC says China threatened the UN as to what is happening to Iran. They called it an illegitimate war. They do not want to have two nuclear countries attacking a non-nuclear country. A war crime in itself. And Aries Meditations says use AI for Starmer's autobiography. It will give him more personality. And Richard Tyler, 6824, says Nye Bevan, Harold Wilson, John Smith will all be turning in their graves at seeing Labour now. And user YP7 says Trump picking up some Temu mobile phones to sell the suckers that bought Trump phones. And Crowhawk 6626 says George could wear a Rangers top and I'd still vote for him over any of our political class. Thank you very much for that. If the money's right. Line 1, Boris is also in Canada, but in Toronto, and wants to talk about Zelensky. Go ahead, Boris. It's all yours.
George,
unless you're Boris Johnson.
George,
are you Boris Johnson?
George, I have the ultimate respect and admiration for you. I'm a Patreon member, but it pains me on your position on Zelensky. To be an anti-Zelensky mindset based on corruption, when world leaders have been corrupt from Arafat to Zelensky, no more so than Donald Trump. During the course of my work life, I've had an annual salary better than Vladimir Putin. I do not have billion-dollar retreats in the Caucasus. It pains me. Ukraine had 5,000 nuclear weapons on its soil. When Bill Clinton seduced them into relinquishing their ownership, they removed them from the nation, and then they become the victim of the Russian aggression. So it's far deeper than Zelensky being a corrupt individual, given the state of the leadership class in the world today.
Well, I've no doubt you'll not be a Patreon supporter by the time I'm finished talking, but I never heard such bollocks in all of my life. First of all, Ukraine did not have ownership of any nuclear weapons. Those nuclear weapons were owned by the USSR, and the successor state for all matters, legal and all matters, is Russia. They never, ever, at any time, had the codes for those nuclear weapons. They were scrap metal. They could not have been used by Ukraine. Those codes were in Moscow. So that's complete bollocks that you've just said. Arafat was not corrupt. I knew Arafat. Arafat was a friend of mine. Arafat died owning only the uniform he went into hospital with. It's a complete piece of Zionist fiction that Arafat was corrupt. That some people around him were corrupt cannot be gainsaid. And that many people that succeeded him are corrupt, that too cannot be gainsaid. But I will not have a man who spent his life just one yard away from being murdered by Israel, Sharon, Begin, and Netanyahu and all of his predecessors being traduced in that way. I'm not speaking for Vladimir Putin, but he doesn't have a multi-million retreat in the Caucasus. He has property, as any head of state has, which is owned by the state, and which, when he shuffles off this mortal coil, although Western propagandists like you have long said that he already has shuffled off the mortal coil, and that the Putin you see in front of you now is actually a body double. But if he's not a body double, if he's still alive, he's got Parkinson's disease, cancer of the liver, he's got heart attack problems, he's now got Parkinson's disease, according to the Daily Mail at the weekend. You're all wishing for something that isn't going to happen. And you're all lying about Russia in the service of a man whom the American government itself, which gave the money, which Zelensky stole, is now closing in on him. The truth of the matter is, Ukraine was dubbed by the Financial Times before Zelensky, before the war, as the most corrupt country in Europe. Ukraine was a byword for corruption before Zelensky had ever been heard of, and before there was any war in the region. So I don't know why you're on here trying to persuade us that Zelensky is not a crook. But if he is a crook, it doesn't matter, because A, B, C, D, E, F, and G were also crooks, because that's essentially what you have just said. And here's a key difference. These other people may have been crooks, but it wasn't my money they were stealing. Zelensky is stealing my money. He's stealing your money. He's stealing the money of the American taxpayers and the taxpayers of all of Europe. So he robbed me. If Arafat had been a crook, it wasn't my money he was stealing. All right? But Zelensky has stolen my money. Respond, Boris Johnson in Toronto. What have you got to say for yourself?
Thank you. So, I will still be a Patreon member. We need this type of discourse to flesh out the real problem. It's the people that are being killed. I don't recall the Ukraine trying to expand in Russian territory. My heart is broken by the humanity that is being lost. In Toronto, I'll say specifically, so I can get back on your good side, we'll have the chief of police in the city of Toronto standing beside the mayor saying, we will stand shoulder to shoulder with Israel and we will stamp out anti-Semitism. But at no point do people say, would you just stop killing the people in Palestine? They never address the source of the problem. So my point to you, and thank you for letting me respond, is that the
You're welcome, and thank you for your generosity of spirit. But you've got my blood up now, so I'll have to respond to your response. Your country honored an SS veteran in the Parliament, introduced by the Speaker of the House. They gave him a standing ovation. And they even said from the Speaker's chair that this hero fought against the Russians in the Second World War. Well, if he fought against the Russians in the Second World War, that means he was fighting for Hitler. And not one member of the Canadian Parliament had the wit to work that one out. You harbor hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian fascists who went to Canada at the end of the Second World War to escape the wrath of the great people of Ukraine and the USSR for the collaboration with the Nazi tyranny that had briefly occupied them. You've got war memorials to the SS in Canada. You want to talk about anti-Semitism, or they want to talk about anti-Semitism? Babi Yar was carried out by the very Ukrainian fascists that you are on here defending on this show tonight. Now, nobody is more distraught at the needless destruction of Ukrainian life than me. But who's responsible for that? You say that Ukraine never attacked Russia, but Ukraine was the very place where everybody attacked Russia through. Napoleon, the Kaiser, Adolf Hitler, all invaded Russia through Ukraine, with a handy number of collaborators on each of the three occasions, but particularly the last. And Russia is fully entitled to say there have been 3 invasions of Russia through Ukraine, but there will not be a 4th. And so when NATO moves its troops, its bases, its trainers, and its weapons onto Ukrainian soil, that's a red line for us. And Putin repeatedly told everybody it was a red line. From the Munich conference in 2007, almost 20 years ago, he said this endless expansion of NATO towards our frontier will not be accepted. It's a red line for us. And now people complain that finally he acted on that red line. I've got to take a quick break because I've got an even more eloquent man than me coming up. It's the one and only Gerald Celente from New York. Right after this short break, stay tuned. His approval ratings are in the toilet. He won a huge mandate well less than a year ago, and he's thrown it all away. He has an approval rating of just under 40% now, and a disapproval rating of all the others. There are no don't knows in the issue of Donald Trump. And so he has maximized the number of people who hate him or dislike him, and he has systematically undermined the voting base that formerly liked him. And I don't know whether that is because of his donors, because he's intellectually challenged, because it's of his age. I really don't know.
You are listening to the Mother of All Talk Shows with George Galloway.
Gerald Celente is a great American. He's the publisher of Trends Journal, founder of Trends Research Institute, with a track record second to none, certainly in the United States of America. He's an all-round good guy, a wise guy, but not in that old traditional sense, if you know what I mean. Let's welcome him back to the Mother of All Talk Shows. Gerald, I don't know if you're going to manage to avoid swearing as we talk about Goldfinger and his golden calf statue in Florida, his kowtow in Beijing to the Communist Party of China, his venality as a character, as an individual, has now reached almost indescribable proportions. Mind you, he's got a good taste in ballrooms.
You know, before we go on to that, I was listening to you about Ukraine. This is your Trends Journal magazine back when it used to be a quarterly. Now it's a weekly. You see how happy that guy is? That's the United States overthrow of the democratically elected government of Viktor Yanukovych in Ukraine in 2014. And this is an article, Washington is Driving the World to the Final War, by Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, who was the former Assistant Treasury Secretary under Ronald Reagan. And he goes on to say, Ukraine presented the perfect opportunity for Washington to advance its hegemonic agenda. In a speech to the National Press Club last December, Assistant Secretary of State Victoria Nuland boasted that Washington had invested $5 billion in non-governmental organizations in Ukraine for the purpose to teach democracy. They overthrew the government. People have no idea about this and what that fellow is saying. And again, this is from Paul Craig Roberts. For about 200 years, Ukraine was part of the Russian Empire and the Soviet Union. The Russian Black Sea naval base is located in Crimea. Crimea, a province of Russia for most of the period since that time of Catherine the Great. Goes on and on and on about how the United States overthrew the government. Oh, and you're speaking about Zelensky, and you made the point that most people don't know about, by the way, that the European Union called Ukraine the most corrupt nation in Europe. You forgot that, with all due respect, I mean, Zelensky knows how to play the piano with his penis. Did everybody forget that? Remember the cartoon? A little character, a little cartoon character that's now, they can't have elections anymore. I'm in charge. That laughing as he's playing the piano with his penis. You can look up the video, anybody. It's on YouTube. And again, that's the entire world. It's a freak show in a country near you. You forgot that little godson Macron over there in France with a pecker the size of a pencil if he has one? Or how about Boris Johnson? I mean, you're from the UK. The best cartoonist in the world couldn't come up with a little low-life, ugly, stupid piece of crap than him. Oh, I forgot. Now you got Starmer. Who do you got over there in Germany? Oh, Harry Merz. Oh, what's his popularity rating now? About 20%. Oh, but we're spending $1 trillion to build up our military. We have to stop the Russians. We only killed 27 million of them in World War II. So that's where we're at. And now you got Trump. 5-time draft dodge. I'm the same age. I did everything I could to beat the draft. They didn't want to get my brains blown out. But I launched Occupy Peace. I have peace movements every year. This guy lied his way into office as, I'm not going to start a war, I'm going to start wars. And now it's the Iran war that's costing the entire globe. Costing everybody. And who brought it to you? Two guys, Netanyahu and Trump. Two clowns in front of not to be disrespectful to people that know how to play a clown. I'm talking about low-life clowns that started this war based on Trump's opinion. It was my opinion that they were going to attack us, so I attacked them first.
Exactly so. You're absolutely right in everything you said there, except you grossly overinflated the current opinion poll rating of Mr. Merz, the Chancellor of Germany. It's 13%. It's 14% for Starmer in England, and it's 15% for Macron, but only because he's declared already he's leaving politics next year. The revelation in Paris Match that Brigitte landed a haymaker on him because he was caught flirting with an Iranian actress, put him up in some people's estimation, because not many people thought he had that in him, if you get my drift. Boris Johnson, the caricature you draw is absolutely perfectly drawn. The crew, the cast of this disaster is so unbelievable, so self-harming, and suicidal for their own people, it's difficult to draw it, if you were trying to, as a piece of fiction. This is a case of fact being much stranger than fiction. But going back to Donald Trump, and I can't get him out of my mind. I can't get his golden statue out of my mind, particularly as it's now surrounded by dirty nappies and toilet paper, used condoms and the rest. I'm wondering how he's going to do in China, because he's there as a supplicant, you know. There's never been an American leader who's gone to China in a weaker position than Donald Trump is there right now. Am I right?
Yeah. Look, it's the end of the American empire. We became the country that our founding fathers fought against, Great Britain. You remember once upon a time, the sun never sets on the British Empire. We're slaughtering people all over the world. And what happened? You mentioned World War One. What happened after World War One? It was the death of the pound. And then the dollar came up. And now America, again, you're talking about China? The 20th century was the American century. But the 21st century is going to be the Chinese century, because the business of America is war and the business of China is business. You're talking about Trump going to China? Let's go back to last February. That came out of Trump's mouth. Hey, I'm going to cut that defense budget by $500 billion, all right? Oh, now what are they doing? Hey, well, I'm going to increase the defense budget by $500 billion, all right? This country is over. And now the whole world is disgusted with America because of what it's costing them. So there's going to be the death of the dollar. This country's gone down again. It became the war that our founding fathers fought against and hated. By the way, I launched Occupy Peace, and I read George Washington's farewell address. And one of the things he says is, don't get involved in these foreign wars. This stuff's been going on for centuries. It's none of our business. Our only business is to protect our nation and stay out of the business of other nations. And every one of these little low-life boys that couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag, boy, did they love war. Oh, Washington fought in war. Oh, Trump got 5 draft deferments. Oh, little Bill Clinton, how many draft deferments did he get? Oh, how about the Nobel Peace of Crap Prize winner, Barack Obama? Oh, that lied his way into office. As soon as he got in, Afghan troop surge. Don't forget, I want that guy Assad out of there. Oh, the quote, Obama, that's quoted in the book, Double Down, quote, I'm really good at killing people. How about little Georgie Bush with a pair of cojones smaller than a mothball, if he has any? Remember him? We're going to get that guy Osama bin Laden dead or alive. All these little gutless, I forgot about LBJ, I forgot about him. One guy after another, all these little clown gutless boys that never fight, that send other people to go get killed. Anybody that supports a war in another country, put on your costume, go over there and fight, or shut your mouth. That's the way I feel about it.
Well, that was extremely powerful, Gerald, and will be remembered long. The Chinese might bail you out, but they'll exact a high price for it. And they are very good at business, as you definitely know. And sometimes you can interest them in foreign politics. And they're definitely interested in Iran. They have material interests in Iran. And they already lost a big chunk of material interests in Venezuela, so they're not going to allow it to happen twice. Surely one of the prices Trump will have to pay is to abandon this idea of going back to war on Iran.
Here's the deal. Trump wants to get out of this. Again, he lied and lied and lied. The war's over. I have the quotes. All his lies about saying how it was over. Anyway, without going through them, Israel's not going to let him out. because the deal with Iran, among them, is that Israel has to withdraw from Lebanon, which they're destroying. They're bombing it into Gaza. Over 1 million people have been forced out of their homes in Lebanon. Israel is not going to push out of this war. Trump is going to do everything he can to get out of it. And again, in your Trends Journal this week, we quote that what's this guy, that little boy of nothing, Marco Rubio, had said that. Here we go. He said that Rubio went on to say that, quote, "We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that we would precipitate an attack against American forces, and we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties." Rubio said Iran, were getting ready to attack Israel. They were going to attack others. All right?
Yep.
That's what happened.
He said it.
The United States, and again, yep. And then Trump went on to say that, again, it was the cover of Our magazine, that we attacked Iran, because it was, quote, my opinion that they were going to attack us first. And we said, shove your opinion up, you know what? You don't start wars based on, quote, opinions. And now, look what happened when you saw the polls coming out, how 77% of Americans surveyed blamed the CNN poll. Trump policies are driving the cost of living higher, while 75% said the war in Iran has a negative effect on their finances. They asked Trump yesterday what he thought about this. His quote, "I don't think about Americans' financial situations. I don't think about anybody. I think about one thing. We cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon." Hey, I don't care about anybody, all right? What nuclear weapons? All the facts were showing they were not making nuclear weapons. And, you remember when you bombed them last June? Hey, we obliterated their nuclear weapons. Oh, you forgot that one? Oh, but what did he say? We were attacking them because I thought they were going to attack us first. One lie after another in front of everybody's eyes, and lying to the American people that, here he goes. March 3rd, they launched the war on February 28th. They asked Trump about Rubio's statement. He said, no, this quote, "I might have forced their hand. You see, we were having negotiations with those lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. I felt strongly about that. And based on the way the negotiations are going, I think they were going to attack first." Okay, wait a minute. That's why you attacked them. Had nothing to do with nuclear weapons. And now you don't care that American people are suffering. You say, I don't think about Americans' financial situations. Oh, yeah, but you lied your way into office when you were running for president. How you said you were going to give them more money, bring down energy and oil prices, on and on and on. One lie after another after another. I've never seen anything like this in my life.
No, nor I, and we've both been following American politics for a very long time. But where's it all going to end, Gerald? Because nobody in the current Congress is going to do anything about it. The latest attempt in the Senate to apply the War Powers Act was lost by 50 votes to 49. And that's not going to change. And of course, Vance has the casting vote in any tied vote. So we have a situation here that the system has failed. Everybody knows that what you're saying tonight is correct, but no one is in a position to stop it. That's the real disaster here, isn't it?
Absolutely. Here, the cover of this week's magazine. You ready? Politicians, public servants? Question mark. No. We the people are servants to politicians. Bend over, pay your taxes, do what you're told. It's not a government. It's a crime syndicate. They're murderers and thieves. By their deeds you shall know them. And just to make it 1,000% clear, I was the assistant to the Secretary of the New York State Senate. I worked on major political campaigns in Westchester County, the richest county in America. I designed and instructed a course called American Politics and Campaign Technology, taught it at St. John's University. Got a picture of me and Ronald Reagan when I put on a brunch with him for 16 of our board of directors. Back when I was 30 years old. I was on the other side. I wouldn't know what I know if I wasn't on the other side. And let me tell you what the other side looks like. Gutless little clown jerks. And again, not be disrespectful to people that play clowns. And by the way, the Barnum and Bailey Circus, it went out of business. You know why? You don't have to step right up, see the fat man, see the tattooed lady, see the lady with the beard. They're out in the street everywhere. But anyway, going back to what's going on, they are gutless little jerks. When I quit, my friends couldn't believe I was quitting. I said, I'm not going to suck up to get my way up to the top. My best friend, Brian Donahue, his wife, Mary Donahue, became the lieutenant governor under Pataki, the governor of New York at one time. I was on the other side. I know what it looks like. You call these guys... Can you imagine a Starmer, a Mertz, a little freak boy, a Trump being in a fight? Can you imagine any of these guys? Don't talk to me like that. I'll have you arrested. That's who they are. And they're stealing our money to do it. So everybody get back to work and do what you're told. We need a new third party here. We need a guy like a Massey or a Judge Napolitano. We need real men and women. But they don't exist in the political parties. There's a crime syndicate.
I promise you, Gerald,
near you.
You have been more than 1,000% clear, as always. How do people get subscribed to the Trends Journal? It's absolutely invaluable.
Just go to trendsjournal.com, trendsjournal.com. We're giving people everything we can. It's only $2.59 a week, just to show you the demise of journalism. This is the business section of the toilet paper record, the New York Times on Sunday, for $6 a day. One big stupid picture, secret tapes, hidden wealth, dynastic drama. All right? One stupid thing after another. So we're giving people everything we can to help them prepare, prevail, and prosper in these times ahead, the most dangerous times of our lifetime, and we have to unite for peace. It does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority, keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men, said Samuel Adams, one of the founding fathers. And you and I are that irate members of that irate, tireless minority. So thank you for all that you do. You're one of a kind. No cat out there like you.
Thank you. God bless you. Gerald Celente of the Trends Journal, trendsjournal.com. If you don't want to pay $2.50 for it, then frankly, you deserve everything you've got coming. This man tells you history before it happens. Gerald Celente, thank you as always. Let me stay in New York, in fact, where Dave wants to talk about Iran. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, how you doing, George? Long time don't talk to you. I'm so happy to be on your show. How you doing?
Oh, by the grace of God, good. Thanks very much. Go ahead, sir.
Alhamdulillah. I'm glad you're okay. But, George, I've been needing to call you for weeks now, but I'm going to just try to make this short and spicy in about a minute and a half. Iran is fighting for like freedom for free-thinking people. Mr. Celente, Mr. Napolitano, and all their guests, I follow them. And if you don't have an ounce of conscience, you will know who is speaking the truth from who is not. And I'm so grateful for these guys because they have opened my eyes so far right now where I'm coming from. I'm giving thanks to them so much. And I live in America for 10 years now, George, and I've seen the decline. I've made mistakes, but I've seen a decline. And anybody who thinks America is on the right side of history, they're kidding themselves. This is a great nation. Don't get me wrong. It is a great nation. But what's going on right now, you have to have a level of conscience to see what is right from wrong. I was grown by my grandmother in Jamaica, and I know what right is from wrong. And Iran is on the right side of history. I came here, and I'm a Sunni Muslim in America, and Iran is Shia, and there's not one mosque that I can go to where I can see these people talking like the truth, and I'm not into that. I'm not into the hypocrisy of a lot of these mosques and all of that stuff, but it will never let me stray from what God really is, what the message of the Bible is, what the message of the Quran is, and what the message of what the Torah is. And I can tell you, George, I seen it. There's no way I could be here, right, seeing thousands of babies dying, and every day Israel is killing, and don't have a conscience to know this is wrong.
Exactly. You've used the word I was about to use, Dave. We all know the difference between right and wrong because God gave us a conscience. And the conscience is your daily communion with God. And everybody who does something wrong knows that they're doing something wrong. Thanks very much. That'll have to be the last call. Let me, just before I bring in Gayatri, thank the new donors this week who've been logging on to MOATS.tv on the website and joining our exclusive club. Please help support the show. Keep the show independent and keep the show twice a week. Here's some honorable mentions. Jason Al-Mosawi, Donald Mackay, Rafiq Kathwari, Mark Cope, and Fra McCaffrey. Big thanks to every one of you and every one of you who is going to give after the show by scanning the QR code now. You can go directly to the website. And now, bringing up the close of this, I think, wonderful show this evening, the woman without whom the news wouldn't be the news, and without whom I wouldn't be me. Here's Gayatri. What's rattling, Gayatri?
So Trump is in China, and just to show how important this visit is, the China Daily, which is the largest English newspaper in China, headlines the following: Sino-Tajik ties enter new phase. Treaty hilt for fully showing high levels of political mutual trust. So on the day that the President of the United States arrives in the People's Republic of China, the China Daily puts up this huge picture showing Xi and Emomali Rahman. He is the president of a Central Asian country which has a population of 10 million people, as opposed to the 340 American population. Tajikistan and China have a trade deal of around $4.3 billion, which is hundreds of times smaller than that with the United States. But it goes to show that the biggest English newspaper in China basically relegates Trump's visits to the sidebar. Trump is, of course, in China with Elon Musk and other CEOs of major corporations like BlackRock and Apple and Boeing. But he is not the only one seeking deals. You know, the aforementioned Macron, who, as you say, was slapped by his wife for flirting with an Iranian woman, he is in Africa seeking new partnerships. But this time, he's not in the usual Western Francophone part. He lands in Nairobi. Now, what is Macron doing in English-speaking nation, which actually has never happened before? Why would he, right? Well, he has to now that most of the Sahel, of course, countries have made up this new alliance in which they've rejected and gotten rid of the French troops and trades and even languages, cut ties altogether. Macron is now forced to seek other parts of Africa. And he is committing to an investment of $27 billion. As opposed to the investment that China in 2025 alone spent, which was $61 billion, just in 2025 alone. France is having a go at the English-speaking part of Africa. And to conclude, he said at the inaugural meeting of the France-Africa Summit 2026, he said the following, namely that them, with this new part of Africa, they are the true Pan-Africanists of the future.
Well, that was the only thing funnier than Brigitte Macron whacking him in public over his flirty. I must say, I thought he played for the other side, if you get my drift. I thought he was on the pink team. So the fact that he was flirting with an actress rather than an actor came, I'm old-fashioned, you know that, as a pleasant surprise to me. But
to me too.
The only thing that was funnier than that was him attacking Russia and China as the 21st century colonialists. So here's a man representing a country which bled Africa dry of its people, never mind its resources, and which has fought tooth and nail in French-speaking Africa to continue its domination of those countries, attacking Russia and China, who have never occupied a single square kilometer of African soil, never enslaved a single African, and the fact that the Africans are turning to them is described by Macron as imperialism. It's enough to make a horse laugh. I've had lots of laughs in the show tonight. I hope the rest of the audience did too. And on behalf of Gayatri and myself and our whole family, we thank you for joining us here on the Mother of All Talkshows. And if you enjoyed it, we'll be back again, God willing, on Sunday for the mothership for the Mother of All Talkshows. It's been marvelous for us. Calls from all over the world and great, great guests. And Gerald Celente makes me laugh so much, and Max Blumenthal makes me proud. It's been great. Thanks for being with us.
It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows.
Go get 'em, George.